Hey y'all, my name is Maddie Simpleton, and today I will be talking about the importance of urban agriculture and how it is feeding the nation. So if we go back to the very beginning of time, those people were hunters and gatherers. They had to fend for themselves. They had to go out. They spent all day looking for food in order to feed themselves. Soon, those people developed farming practices and realized that farming was a lot easier than having to go out and fend for their food every day. And so, a couple hundred years later, through evolution, here we are now, very distinctly in urban and rural areas. Most people get their food from a grocery store. They don't really think about where exactly their food has to come from those rural areas. And so, with the growing population, because right now we have about 7.9 billion people, and by the year 2050, it is predicted that 9.7 billion people will be on this planet. And so right now, even if the US were having a problem feeding those 7.9 billion people, in a couple years, it's going to be even harder. And that's something that urban agriculture really helps blend the line between rural and urban populations, because it's bringing that rural feel into the rural urban populations, allowing them to get a sense of where their food's coming from, allowing for them to help feed the population, and providing them with stable nutrients. So, although urban agriculture practices won't feed entire cities, that's not the point of them. Their purpose is to serve small communities within the city to help the demand of goods. Anymore, people are lacking in nutrients, whether they don't realize it or not. There are 7.8 billion people in the world, and of those 300 million living in the US. So 300 million people are living in the US. And that means that the demand for this food is very hard and straining. It's especially straining on the farmers because there's not a lot of farmers. Farming is a dying practice. But with bringing urban agriculture into these communities, they are becoming the farmers. They are getting that aspect on how to grow food. They're seeing start to finish from seed to the end of product. So not only are they educating themselves, but they're also getting more nutrient diets. According to Farm Bureau, one U.S. farmer feeds 166 people a year. So that means it would take over 2 million farmers to feed the U.S. population per year. So again, bringing urban community gardens in would allow for those people to cut down on the demand of farmers, because there's about only 2.2 million farmers in the US. And even though that math of the 2 million to feed 166 people per farmer does add up, most crops or outputs or whatever the farmer is growing, a lot of it doesn't stay in the US. And that also doesn't mean that good is going to be put in directly to our community. Just because Arkansas, for instance, grows a lot of stuff here, we have a high, diverse in our commodities, doesn't mean they're necessarily gonna stay here. And so bringing urban agriculture into those high populated demands allows for that strain on those farmers in the state, in the nation, all over the world to decrease, because people are having readily available nutrients right outside their door. Before I move on to my next point, I'm going to show you all this graphic that I found from the Conservation Law Foundation on what just 50 acres will do. So this one in particular is in Boston. And if you can see, so 50 acres in Boston, which is equal to this Boston Common. It's this really big park right in the heart of Boston. It cuts down on 110 tons of gas emissions. So this is just annually. So that's a lot when you're in one of those urban situations where there's constant gas emissions. But it supplies 223 total jobs. So 50 acres, 223 total jobs. When you're dealing with these urban communities, a lot of times community gardens are put in a higher poverty area. So not only are those people who might not be able to afford food, but they're also possibly getting a job. So annually it produces 1,512 pounds of crops. So whether that be carrots or potatoes or wheat or tomatoes, like anything, that's a lot of food because it can supply, they supply 5 meals of fruits and vegetables per day to one person. So community gardens are very impactful. So annually it serves 6,000 people. Totally, 6,000 people. So 50 acres just in the Boston area, it has a big impact, especially because Boston is a big town with high poverty rates, high population. This image right here shows that these community gardens have become very impactful in serving the community. So urban agriculture allows communities direct access to healthier eating options while also allowing them to cut down on their cost of feeding their families. So there's this really cool program. It's called the Free Rider program. And so again, a lot of these places where they put community gardens or urban agriculture practices are high poverty. And so that's why they put them there, to help cut down on their cost. And so the Free Rider program allows for these people to work in the garden, and in return they're going to get free food. So where some of them provide jobs for these people, this is kind of like a trade-off situation. So it's really nice for these people because number one, they're getting vitamin D. Number two, they're getting to be involved in where their food is coming from directly. And number three, they're only spending a couple hours, and in return they're getting a meal or two for a day, which is a great trade. According to the USDA, more than 41 Americans face hunger a year, with 13 million of them being children, just because their families don't have financial needs to purchase the food, whether it be nutritional, in acceptable quantities to eat, or locally available for them. Just because people don't have money doesn't mean that they don't need food. Food is something that we have to have. We have to have at least 2 to 3 meals a day to keep everyone going. And just because they can't afford it doesn't mean that they don't need it. And even sometimes, like, just the travel to go get the food. A lot of people in these urban areas don't have readily accessible transportation, or it takes a while to go get there. So a lot of people don't think about that. And so these people, even if you're starving, obese, malnourished, or properly nourished, community gardens provide direct access to food. You're not going to have to go sit on a subway for 30 minutes or walk miles to the nearest grocery station to go get food. It also allows direct access to healthy food. So while these people might not be getting the most nutritious meals, urban agriculture allows them to at least add a serving or two of fruits and vegetables to their day, which is helping decrease not only the obesity levels, but as well as the hunger levels. According to research from the University of Sheffield, using only 10% of a city's urban green space could provide 15% of the local population with 5 portions of fruits and vegetables a day. So that's only 10% of a total city's urban space. So Boston used 50 acres and it fed quite an amount of people. I don't know if that's exactly 15%, but could you imagine, even small towns, big towns, if they just took 10% of their green space to turn it into a garden, they'd feed 15% of their population. For some of those towns, that would feed their whole hungry population. For other ones, that'd put a really good dent in it. Either way, urban agriculture is going to decrease the poverty line. It's going to decrease the hungry line. It's going to get more people, especially those 13 million children. It's going to decrease the amount of them that are now malnourished. So in conclusion, urban agriculture practices are often small, but can have huge effects on the community that it's in. While it serves them, getting them healthier, more affordable food, it also serves large-scale farmers on cutting down the strain of feeding the growing population. And it becomes more beneficial in time of need and the growing poverty, as well as helping face the population growth. Thank you.